Let's take a look here and see what we've got and put that in there. Whoo, that's high grade sunlu right there. And what is up, guys? Technical Tinkers here. So working on some different things. If you've been following the vlog, you know that I print things to sell on the internet, print things to support my main business. So Sunlu reached out recently. Everyone's familiar with Sunlu. They make filament and other things. And was like, do you want some filament? And I'm like, yes, I'll take free filament. All right, let's see what we got. So they sent over this high-speed PET G. It's in like a gray metallic or a matte sort of color. They sent over this maple wood filament. I've used one of these before with some success. We'll see how the Sunlu does. This is kind of a cool sort of effect. I believe it does have some kind of like wood fibers in there. That actually might be pretty good for one of the skulls. We got this rainbow. These always come out looking really good for the skulls. Maybe a moai head or something like that. The marble, I've actually bought this before, and I did a D20 cube in this, and I believe that D20 cube might have sold, so we're going to be taking a look at that as well. Another rainbow here. This one's a little bit different. It's kind of like the filament switches up instead of it being like two tones on either side. That'll look pretty good. And this silk purple shiny, this will look pretty good on the skull. So let's spool this up and see what comes out. All right, so we got everything up and operating. We got all the Sunlu spools going on all the various printers. Let's check them out. They've been going for, you know, maybe 15, 20 minutes. Let's see what's going on. All right, so down here on the Flashforge, I put the PET G in this one because I was already kind of, well, I wanted to use the hard nozzles on the FL Sun. So I've got the PET G in here. Let's check it out, see how we're doing thus far. Seems to be doing all right. Had to make it a little smaller because the build plate's a little smaller on this 85M Pro. Over here on the S1 Pro, we put the wood filament in there. And so the wood filament runs at a lower temperature, like 215. And I dialed all the speeds down to 200. I'm doing all the settings off the spool. So this said up to 200 millimeters per second at 215 with a 60-degree bed temp. That's exactly what I'm doing. It looks like it's going, yeah, it's topped out at that 200. So that's looking pretty good too. I gotta tell you, that smells like wood. That's why I haven't been running Cobra 1, is because I have no spool holder up here. Let's rob from Peter to pay Paul. And because we haven't run this printer in 3 weeks, we probably need to reconnect it to the Wi-Fi. It says it's connected to the Wi-Fi. We got number one all set up here with this rainbow silk. Gonna run the same type of print. Don't touch it. And you know, printing all these skulls, I was gonna do the big hippo skull, get the Giga going again, hopefully within the next day or two. But I'm printing all these human skulls in all these different forms, and it made me think, I don't have a giant human skull. And knowing that I can print 30 by 30 by 20, I could probably print, you know, to avoid oversized shipping charges, I could probably print a pretty big human skull on the Giga. Maybe we'll do that next. We've already got the beige loaded up, so we'll throw that in the slicer and see how it looks. So it is 100% the next day. Let's check in and see how our skulls came out. All right, going in the building to check on the T1 Pro. It's loud in here because it's a little warm. The ASIC miners have been running. So as you can see, T1 Pro didn't work out so well. All right, so this isn't a filament problem as much as it is maybe the printer problem. Could be something in the settings that I didn't account for. This is the marble that we did. And I noticed it, like, obviously there was a shift somewhere and then it shifted again. So maybe another calibration over here. You know, because this one's out in the building, I don't see it as often. And so I wasn't able to catch it as soon. So not really a filament issue. So no hate to be cast upon Sunlu on this one. Pretty cool finish though. Let's just see what information we can extract. I mean, if you look at where the supports were contacting, I can't even see anything where the support's contacted. So that's nice. I was a little concerned about that. Yeah, it's looking pretty good. So we're gonna clean this up and get this recalibrated. And then we're probably gonna start it again to try to get something out of this, because this Stone Effect skull, would actually be pretty cool. And sort of a similar issue over here on Cobra 1. So this is the one we originally were trying out down here on Cobra number 4, but we had to replace the nozzle on that. It was all jammed up. So we put it up here on Cobra 1, but one of these little supports failed early on, and I was like, maybe if I just kind of mash it in a little bit, it'll like pick up and continue and not be an issue, but that was not the case, and so I did stop the print. Just checking in like on it, the progress thus far. That's a really cool effect. That all would have been an interesting skull. So I think I'm gonna try to continue this one. I'm just gonna like nudge up the support settings on this. Now these build plates suck. If you saw my video not long ago, you saw where I had like destroyed them with the PET G. The PET G fused to the plate. I haven't put the new plates on because I'm trying to squeeze every little bit out of it, but overall, very cool effect on this. I'm gonna keep trying it in this silk. Let's see how the supports come off. Yeah, it's a little sticky there. Let's try one that's a little kind of by itself. Not too bad. You know, some of these areas where there's a ton of supports contacted, maybe a little questionable. No, that's fine. Yeah, it looks pretty good. So I think the heat and the speed settings are good. It's just not enough support, and because the build plate, the adhesion sucks. Maybe I'll just throw some like glue on this plate and see if I can get a little better result. Overall, the infill, I could probably even dial the infill down. I don't really need that much. So that's a whiff, but we did have a couple successes. So let's take a look down here. Cobra number 3, coming out pretty good. Now this is the two-tone silk from Sunlu over here. It's like this purple black. And so I thought about this like shortly after I started the print, but I'm like, whatever, just keep going. The speed. So if you remember the moai heads I did with the silk, if you don't have a constant speed, you're gonna get that like benchy hull line sort of thing going on. And that's kind of what happened here. And that's, you know, again, settings issue, my fault, operator error, not the printer, not the filaments. It's the Dodo operating the machine. So you do get these kind of these lines in here. Actually, that's kind of dope on the back. Like it's black and then it's purple and it gradients in. So the lines are a little, I don't know, maybe some people like it, but I mean, overall, once we get the supports popped off, this would be a pretty cool looking example here. And then over here, this one's kind of impressive too. This is the rainbow. I think it's a matte, maybe not a matte, but it is certainly a rainbow over here on the A1 on the BTU plate. No adhesion issues whatsoever there. And maybe that's why I thought there was gonna be no issue on number 1 because I've been running everything on this cold plate, which has great adhesion. And I'm like, yeah, everything's peachy keen, put it up here, and then it doesn't adhere because that's just the regular textured PEI plate. Overall, pretty good. So let's get the supports off of these and see how they look. One there, and no, we're not gonna pop the supports off yet because we got 2 more printers to take a look at. So FL Sun S1 Pro, this is the wood filament, the maple wood filament we ran through here. Now, at first glance, I'm like, oh, it looks just like the Bamboo Labs type filament, but it's a much cooler effect. Let's see, get this off one-handed pull here. All right, set the camera down. Of course, it comes off immediately after I do that. So one thing I did notice, I don't know if this is the filament or the printer because I dialed the speeds way down on this printer, but the travel speed I kind of left in place. So the travel speed is really fast. It's like 1500 or something like that. So I don't know if it's because of the travel speed, just whipping stuff around. There's like tons of little flecks of filament on here. I think maybe that's from the printer just being violent. So I'm gonna like air duster this out, blast this out. But overall, this skull looks pretty cool. It's this wood filament, maybe harder to pick up on camera, but you know, as compared to like some of the other, just the plain matte I've been using, this totally has that sort of wood fleckle grain sort of thing to it. It's got that wood plastic smell. And I noticed when it was printing, it absolutely smelled like, kind of like burnt, like, you know, if you've been sawing wood with a like a dull blade, you know, that kind of laser engraver wood burning smell, kind of slight, not heavy, But if I would open up the chamber to like check on this, I'd like, you know, get a blast of it in there. So that smell is going to be a thing. Luckily for me, that this FL Sun S1 Pro has that filtration, so I didn't smell not even a bit, not even a tiny little whiff of it here in my office. So that's another bonus for this printer. But overall, this print actually came out pretty good, because I was a little worried with, like, you know, the Delta printer, because the T1, you know, it didn't work out. I was like, you know, is it going to be an issue? Not at all. Just dial the speed down, and once we take the supports off, well, it'll be the true test. All right, and down here on the Flashforge Adventurer 5M Pro, my darling I keep under the desk here, ran the Pet G here. They just kind of advertised it as like a gray Pet G. I'm probably gonna, when I list it as like a titanium or something like that. Maybe tungsten. You don't see a lot of people talking about tungsten, because that could pass for tungsten, I think. This one's a little smaller because of the smaller build. I hear you, Flashforge, I hear you. This one's a little smaller because the build plate on the 5M Pro is a little smaller, so I had to dial it down a bit. But let's check it out. This is Pet G, so yeah, same benchy hull line kind of thing going on here. Supports popping off like a dream. I mean, they really are. There's a lot of supports, which I don't really care for. It looks like we had support failure here in the eye socket. Doesn't look like it's going to be a deal breaker though. So, poor Yorick, let's pull the supports off of all these skulls and see how they look. All right, and so we got all the supports popped off our skulls. This is the one that I've been, with the Bamboo Labs Matte Desert Tan PLA, the one I have in stock. So the settings that I had on my A1 were set up for this and not just regular PLA. And that's probably the first problem I ran into with this one, this rainbow from Sunloop. Cool effect, for sure. But it's regular PLA, so I didn't have like a heavier Z distance. Because the supports pop off that matte PLA like a dream. Not so much with regular PLA, so I should have increased that, because I started pulling off areas that pulled away parts of the model. You can see there's another couple in there, so I just kind of quit pulling the supports off because this one's kind of nuked. Certainly a cool effect, so I think I'll increase the top Z distance and try another go at this, or maybe another model. But certainly a cool gradient effect nonetheless. Here's the Pet G. This one's a little bit smaller, so it's a little more like subdued. It's gray, obviously. I kind of like it. You can certainly market this as like a tungsten or titanium or whatever, gray metal sort of skull thing. Plus this Pet G, it's a little more sturdier. I kind of like this one. Now this is the wood, the maple wood PLA, and this one was kind of a little wacky. It's certainly a lot different in terms of properties than any other PLA I've worked with. This is the first, I believe, the first full wood print, wood filament print that I've done. So it was a little stickier on where the supports contacted, but not to the point where it would damage the model. It was just kind of gummy. It didn't want to pull away. So you know, maybe because the overall the temperatures that it is run at seems to be a lot lower than a lot of other materials. But overall, the supports did kind of come off. You know, it's a little rough. All of them seem to be a little rough here around the base, because I increase the amount of supports here because if I don't, it's only these 2 points of contact, and so I've had failures in the past. But overall, it's kind of pretty similar to that matte PLA. This one's a little darker. It certainly looks more woody, but also it's certainly in that bone sort of realm. A cool effect nonetheless. I don't know about for like a skull, but for something that's like supposed to be wood, or you know, you want to faux wood it, if you're 3D printing, say, a lamp base or something like that, that you want it to look like wood. I believe these wood filaments as well do take stain, so I'm not going to stain this thing, but you know, if you want to look into that, you can. And finally, this silk purple. This one's so cool because it's black here and then it kind of comes into purple. The lines, you know, leaves a little bit to be desired, but overall it's not too bad. There's that shiny sort of cool look. I kept looking at this and thinking if it was in a chrome, it would look like the T800 skull, you know, dun, 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 dun. Maybe look into that in the future. Certainly a cool example. Sports came off pretty good. You know, a little heat gun action there to kind of soften it out. think I might do some experiments with this skull and TPU as well. I've got a couple spools of TPU I've never used. So I thought that might be cool too. But overall, these Sunlu filaments, hey, it's Sunlu filament. You're probably familiar with it if you're into 3D printing. Sunlu is a very popular manufacturer. Once again, thanks Sunlu for sending these over. Thank you again to them also, because it's kind of made me realize when I was pulling the supports off of these, some of them took longer than others, but it was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 skulls that I pulled supports off of here, and it took me about 40 minutes. And I was thinking, you know, I sell these things for like $30-something. It costs like, I don't know, $15 to ship them. You know, for what I'm making off of them, which let's just say it's a $10 rip per full-size skull. You know, for someone else out there, you know, if you wanted to print skulls and sell these on Etsy, it's kind of like a side income sort of thing. That might be a great way to generate some side income, which is kind of what I've been doing here on the channel. But for me, I'm sitting here like, this is just too much work. It's just too much time. You know, again, I'm kind of allergic to work, just to be honest, because it's time. You know, because if I keep doing this, I'm going to become bitter about it. And if I actually grow this and end up selling more, which is the goal, isn't it? Let's say I start selling, you know, 50 of these a day. Well, if it takes 10 minutes per, that's 50 times 10 minutes. That's 500 minutes. That's, I don't know, how many hours is that? That's not something I want to do, for sure. Definitely not, because, you know, if I sell 50 of these a day, that's 500 a day and quote unquote profit. That's not worth it for the amount of time that it would take, because it takes away from every other opportunity that I could possibly be in. So that was kind of a good sort of learning experience, because, you know, when you print one of these out, like I did previously, pop the supports off, put it on Etsy and it sells, you're like, oh great, I made $10. And you don't think about it when you're doing it piecemeal like that. But when you sit down and take the supports off of 5 of these at once, and you're like, oh my God, this took like 30, 40 minutes. It kind of makes you stop and reflect and think about it. And so again, this is just my exhibition, my learning experience throughout this process. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Is $500 a day enough for you to get out of bed? Because I imagine for most people it is. But nonetheless, you're getting off topic here, Matt. This is about the filament. Certainly very cool filaments. Check out Sunlu, link in the description below. You probably already have some Sunlu and you probably already know it's good filament. So check it out if you want to try out some of these different colors for yourself. That's the skull thing. I'll probably end up putting these on the Etsy, or at least a few of them anyway, to see if I get some sales, and then, you know, maybe just never restock them. I'm not sure. I kind of like that method anyway. Everything's a one of one, one-off sort of thing. Let me know what you think I should do in the comments below. Let me know if there's a way that you think I can better sort of scale and kind of adapt this and kind of start printing skulls at scale, at volume, without having to incur the amount of post-production time in dealing with these sort of things, or any tips, tricks, comments, suggestions, or opinions along the way. Be sure to like the video, because it's the nice thing to do, and subscribe for more content like this. I'm the Technicals. See you next time.